Imagine a man. Not a boy, but a man. He has built something. A life. A way of being. He knows who he is. Or at least, he knows who he is supposed to be. He has a role, a title, a set of actions that define him in the world. He is a builder, a protector, a thinker, a leader. His days are structured by intention, by goal, by logic. He moves through the world like a ship, cutting through the waves with purpose, his course charted by the stars of reason and ambition. The waters of emotion are deep and dark beneath his keel, and he seldom looks down. He does not need to. The horizon of achievement is what matters, the destination. Then something happens, a storm, or, perhaps more accurately, a siren song. He meets her, and when he falls in love, his entire world, that carefully constructed ship of self, begins to come apart. He feels a madness. A poetry invades his logic. A longing disrupts his plans. Colors seem brighter, music deeper, and a strange, terrifying vulnerability creeps into his fortress of certainty. He is elated and devastated, empowered and weakened, all at once. Society will tell him this is just chemistry, biology, a social contract beginning. But Carl Jung would tell him something far more profound, far more dangerous, and ultimately, far more true. He is not just falling in love with a woman. He is encountering his own soul. And this encounter will demand everything of him. Let's name the pain, the disorientation. It feels like losing control. It feels like a weakness. One moment he is decisive, focused, independent. The next, his mood is tied to a text message. His peace is hostage to a tone of voice. He finds himself doing things that his old self would ridicule, listening to sentimental music, staring at the moon, feeling an ache of beauty and sorrow at the same time. He may become possessive, jealous, a knight fighting dragons that aren't there. Or he may become a poet, a fool, bury his heart in ways that feel reckless and unlike him. He is at war with himself. One part screams to retreat, to regain that solid, solitary ground. Another part is drawn inexorably forward, into the chaos and the beauty. This is a crisis. And this crisis is not a mistake. It is a central, archetypal initiation of his psychological and spiritual life. To understand why, we must leave the shallow waters of personal psychology and dive into the depths of Jung's collective unconscious. According to Jung, every man carries within him an unconscious, feminine counterpart. He called this inner figure the Anima. The Anima is not the personal mother, nor is it a collection of memories of women he has known. She is an archetype, a primordial image of the feminine that resides in the very bedrock of the male psyche, inherited from the entirety of human experience across eons. She is the soul image. She is everything that is conscious, adapted, masculine persona is not. If his persona is structured, logical, focused, and driven, his anima is fluid, emotional, intuitive, and relational. She is a realm of eros, of connection, of mood, of poetic meaning, of the irrational and the numinous. For most of his life, she is buried, a ghost in the machine. He may catch glimpses of her in his dreams, as a mysterious woman, a guide, a seductress, a muse. He may sense her in his sudden, inexplicable moods, in his irrational irritations, or in those moments of haunting loneliness that strike even in a crowd. But largely, she is unknown. She is the great interior unknown, until he falls in love. What happens in that electrifying moment of falling? Projection. This is a hidden psychological mechanism. The unconscious anima, seeking to be known, to be integrated, projects herself outward onto a real woman in the world. It's as if a brilliant, golden film is suddenly cast over the other person. He doesn't see her, not fully. He sees his own soul staring back at him. He sees everything he lacks. Everything is repressed. Everything he secretly longs for, embodied in another. This is why love at first sight feels so fated, so divine. It is a divine encounter, but the divinity is initially misplaced. He has literally found his missing piece, but he believes it belongs to her. He says, "You complete me," and in a profound, symbolic sense, he is right. But the tragedy, the pain, the source of all later conflict, is that he believes the completion comes from her possession, from her constant presence. He believed the soul he longed for is out there. Jung said, "Projections change a world into a replica of one's own unknown face." So, the lover's world is suddenly, breathtakingly, a mirror of his own inner beauty and chaos. Now, this projection is both a necessity and a prison. It is necessary because a man, so identified with his conscious persona, the tough guy, the achiever, the rationalist, would never voluntarily dive into mysterious, emotional, vulnerable depths of his own psyche. It's too threatening. The anima, as the gateway to the unconscious, is also the gateway to the shadow, to all that is deemed weak, unacceptable, or dark. So the psyche, in its infinite wisdom, tricks him. It lures him into the depths by making him appear as an external paradise. Go after her, it whispers. In her, you'll find what you seek. And so he does. He pursues, he courts, he wins. And in the early stages, it is bliss. He feels whole, alive, connected to a source of meaning he never knew existed. He is, for a time, a more complete human being, because a feminine principle is now active in his life, even if it's projected. But the prison forms when he demands that the woman continue to carry this projection indefinitely, when he believes his wholeness depends on her playing the role of his soul perfectly. This is an impossible burden. Sooner or later, she will sneeze. She will have a bad day. She will fail to be the eternal muse, the comforting goddess, the enchanting siren. She will be human, and when she does, the golden film flickers. He feels betrayed. He may become angry, cold, distant. He thinks, "You've changed." But what has changed is a projection. This is the moment of reckoning. This pain, this disillusionment, is not the end of love. It is love's true beginning. It is the call to individuation. Individuation is Jung's term for the lifelong process of becoming who you truly, inherently are. It is the integration of the conscious and the unconscious, moving you from a state of being a fragment, just a persona, toward the wholeness of the self. And for a man, the relationship of the anima is the royal road to this integration. The falling in love was the call. The disillusionment is the threshold. Now, the real work begins. Will he blame her, leave, and seek another carrier for his projection, repeating the cycle endlessly? Or will he have the courage to turn inward and ask the most terrifying question? If what I loved in her is not hers alone, then where does it truly reside? This is the pivot. This is where a boy's romance dies, and a man's soul work is born. He must withdraw the projection. Not the love, not the connection, but the divine, soul-carrying expectation. He must begin to see the real woman, in her glorious and mundane humanity, separate from the archetype he imposed. And simultaneously, he must begin a relationship with the archetype itself within himself. He must confront his anima. This is a descent. It feels like a loss. It is a loss, the loss of a fantasy, the loss of the idea that salvation lies outside. He must now court his own soul. How does a man court his anima? He does so by cultivating in himself the very qualities he projected. He must make room for eros alongside logos. He must allow himself to feel, not just to think. He must engage with art, with music, with poetry, not as a hobby, but as a sacred dialogue with the depths. He must listen to his moods as messages, not as enemies to be suppressed. He must connect to nature, to the irrational, to the symbolic life. He must, in short, become receptive. The shell of the hardened persona must crack to let the soul breathe. This is often experienced as a crisis of masculinity. The old, rigid model says a man must be invulnerable, always in control, purely logical. The anima integration demands vulnerability, fluidity, and acceptance of the irrational. It does not destroy his masculinity. It enriches it, baptizes it in meaning. The warrior gains a cause worth fighting for that is not just about conquest. The king gains a compassion that is not just about power. The thinker gains an intuition that guides his logic. He becomes a bridge between two worlds. This is the man who can truly love, because he is no longer a hungry ghost seeking his other half outside. He is becoming whole within. From this place, his love for a woman is no longer a desperate need, but a conscious choice. It is no longer projection, but a communion between two whole beings. He loves her for who she is, not for who he needs her to be to complete him. This is the sacred container where real intimacy, not fantasy, can grow. But the path does not end with simply being in touch with your feelings. The Anima, as the gatekeeper, leads him deeper into the forest of the unconscious. She leads him to his shadow, the repressed, unacceptable aspects of himself. In her moods, he may discover his own hidden rage, his shame, his dependency. In his fascination with her mystery, he is drawn to confront his own inner darkness. This is a heroic journey. The love that began with a feeling of blissful ascent now demands a courageous descent. He must face not just his inner feminine, but the monsters and treasures he has buried his whole life. This is the ultimate gift of falling in love. It is a catalyst for the entire individuation process. It initiates him into the great work of self-discovery. So what does it mean in the end? If a man falls in love, he will be summoned. He will be summoned away from the safe, familiar shores of his persona. He will be called into the turbulent, beautiful, dangerous sea of his own psyche. He will confront his soul. He will have his completeness reflected back to him, first as a tantalizing mirage in another, then as a demanding reality within. He will have a choice: to see the disruption as a problem to be solved, a weakness to be eradicated, or to recognize it as the most important opportunity of his life. He will have the chance to stop being just a man as the world defines him, and become an individual, a unique, conscious, and whole expression of the self. His love then transforms from an event that happens to him into a sacred duty he performs for his own awakening. It becomes a relationship not only to a partner, but to the universe within. He will no longer just build and conquer in the outer world. He will learn to kneel in the inner world. He will learn to listen. He will learn to nurture. He will learn that the greatest power is not in being impenetrable, but in being open. The greatest courage is not in never feeling fear, but in facing the depths of one's own heart. If a man falls in love, and if he has the bravery to answer its true call, he will become something far more than a lover. He will become, at last, himself. The journey does not end at the altar of self-awareness, nor does it conclude with a single moment of insight. The confrontation with the Anima is not a battle to be won, but a relationship to be cultivated for a lifetime. Think of that man now, standing in the ruins of his initial projection. The golden film has dissolved. He sees his partner, truly sees her, in her beautiful, frustrating, magnificent humanity, and he feels a new kind of loneliness, a quiet emptiness. It is the emptiness of the interior space he has just discovered, a cathedral within that is dark and echoing. He has withdrawn the projection, but what fills the void? This is a critical juncture. Many turn back here. They mistake this sacred emptiness for a mistake, and they rush to plaster over it with noise, with distraction, with a new project, or even a new relationship to restart the captivating drama of projection. But the man who has been truly summoned cannot go back. The innocence of the old persona is lost. He has eaten from the tree of knowledge, knowledge of his own depths. There is no return to the unconscious paradise of simply being a role, a title, a function. He is now in the desert of the soul, and the only way forward is through. This is where the work of integration begins in earnest. And it is work, active, daily, often unglamorous. It is not about becoming effeminate. It is about becoming whole. It is about building a conscious relationship between the captain of the ship, his masculine consciousness, and the ocean itself, his feminine unconscious. The captain must learn to read the tides, to respect the storms, to listen to the whispers of the deep, not just to command the deck. So, how does this look in the day-to-day life of a man? It begins with reorientation of attention, where before his focus was laser-like, pointed outward at goals and objectives. He now must develop a soft, receptive focus inward. He must create an inner sanctuary. This might be through active imagination, a Jungian technique of engaging with inner figures in a conscious dialogue. He might sit in stillness and intentionally invite the presence of his anima, not as a fantasy of a perfect woman, but as an inner voice, a mood, an image. What does she want? What is she trying to tell him through that lingering sadness, that sudden burst of creative energy, that irrational attraction to a piece of music? Perhaps she appears as a feeling of profound grief for no apparent reason. Instead of shrugging it off or numbing it, he turns toward it. He asks, "What is this grief? What part of me is mourning?" In doing so, he is not indulging in self-pity. He is performing an act of sacred hospitality for a part of his own soul that has been exiled. He is allowing Eros, the connective principle, to operate within his own psyche. He is connecting feeling to being. Or perhaps she manifests as a creative impulse, a desire to write, to paint, to garden. The old persona would dismiss this as unproductive, not monetizable, a waste of time. The man on the path of integration gives it space. He picks up the pen, the brush, the trowel. He understands that this is not a hobby. It is a ritual. It is a sacrifice of logical, goal-oriented time to the irrational, form-giving principle of the soul. Through this act, he is literally giving form to the formless within him. He is making the unconscious conscious. This inner work has a dramatic, alchemical effect on his outer relationships, especially his love relationship. When he no longer demands that his partner be his soul, he frees her to be herself. And in that freedom, a real dialogue becomes possible. Love transforms from a state of being in love, which is a passive, almost possessed condition, to an active verb, to loving. Loving is a conscious choice. It is seeing the other's shadow, their flaws, their annoying habits, and choosing connection not in spite of them, but in a curious relationship to them. His partner's emotions no longer threaten him as tidal waves that might capsize a ship, because he has learned to navigate his own inner seas. Her need for connection is no longer a drain on his independence, because he has come to value connection as a principle within himself. He can hold space for her darkness, because he is learning to hold space for his own. This is the birth of true containment, the vast hermeticum of the relationship, where both partners can be transformed. But the Anima, as a guide, leads him further down. Her pathway winds into the realm of the shadow. Those intense, irrational reactions he has, the sudden jealousy, the buried rage, the petty resentments that flare up in his relationship, these are not merely caused by his partner. They are hooks cast up from the depths of his own unconscious shadow, snagged on her behavior. When he feels a disproportionate anger, it is a signal. It is his soul pointing a trembling finger at a buried part of himself. Perhaps his jealousy points to his own disowned vulnerability and fear of abandonment. Perhaps his irritation at her chaos points to his own rigid, terrified control. His love, through the Anima, has become a relentless mirror. Every conflict becomes a potential revelation, not about her, but about the unexplored continents within him. The relationship becomes a crucible, the alchemical fire where base metals of instinct and projection are burned away, hopefully to reveal the gold of the self. This is the arduous path of individuation through love. It moves from a blinding light of projection through the gray desert of withdrawal into the active, creative engagement with the inner world, and finally into the transformative fire shadow work reflected in the relationship. The goal is the self, the total, integrated personality, the central archetype of wholeness that transcends and includes both the conscious ego and the unconscious. The man who walks this path is no longer a man as defined by collective stereotypes. He is an individual. His masculinity is no longer a brittle shell, but a dynamic, living structure, like a great tree, rooted deeply in the dark, nourishing soil of the unconscious, the feminine, while reaching boldly toward a sky of consciousness and action, the masculine. He can be strong and receptive, decisive and intuitive, logical and poetic. He contains multitudes. So, if a man falls in love, he will be offered a choice. The first, easier choice is to remain in the dream of projection, to make the relationship a religion where she is the goddess and he is the devotee, or later, the disgruntled apostate when she fails to perform her miracles. This path leads to cycles of idealization and disillusionment, to a life lived on the surface, where the soul's longing is perpetually mistaken for a need for a different external circumstance. The second, harder choice is to accept the love as a divine summons to an interior quest, to say, this feeling, this disruption, is about me. It is a call to adventure within. This path leads into the darkness, into uncertainty, into facing all that is avoided in himself. It is a hero's journey, not to slay a dragon in a distant land, but to befriend the dragon of his own psyche, to find the treasure it guards, the treasure of his own authentic being. In the end, the greatest love affair of a man's life is meant to be the one he has with his own soul. The woman he loves, if he is conscious, becomes a sacred partner in that ultimate affair. She is the living, breathing reminder, the fellow traveler, the compassionate witness to his struggle. She is the one who reflects back not his projection, but his reality, who challenges his blind spots, and who celebrates his genuine becoming, the poetic longing, the maddening desire, the heartache, the bliss. All was never just about her. It was the soul's desperate, beautiful strategy to wake him up, to force him to look within, to compel him to build a bridge between the fortress of his ego and the lost kingdom of his interior world. If a man falls in love, and if he has the courage to heed its truest, deepest call, he will not just find a partner. He will embark on the only journey that ever really matters, the journey home to himself. And in that homecoming, he will discover a capacity for love so vast, so grounded, and so real that it can finally, truly, be given as a gift, not demanded as a need. This is a revelation. This is the transformation. This is the gift of the Anima and the sacred, arduous path of a man who dares to love with his eyes and his soul wide open